Welcome to Wisdom Unveiled. We're starting a deep dive, really getting into the minds that shaped how we see the world. This is the first of 18 explorations, and we're beginning with a truly monumental figure, a name you might know, but maybe not the whole story. Today, our focus is squarely on Ibn Sina. You probably know him as Avicenna in the West. Medicine, philosophy, his name comes up a lot. But we want to go, well, a bit deeper than the usual headlines. Our mission really in this first deep dive is to unpack who Ibn Sina truly was. We'll look at the surprising challenges he faced, how crucial his students were, and why his ideas, even now, still feel so fresh, so relevant for you. Okay, before we jump right in, just a quick note. The insights we're sharing, they come from some really fascinating conversations with Iranian philosophers, people like Dr. Ibrahim Dinani and Dr. Ismail Mansouri Larijani. Now, this is a translation, so, capturing every single nuance is tricky. We've done our best, but apologies if anything feels slightly off. We definitely welcome your feedback. Right then, let's start with the big picture. Ibn Sina, often called a genius of the Islamic world. But I get the sense there's a broader way to see him.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really important starting point. While he's undeniably a giant of the Islamic Golden Age, to really appreciate Ibn Sina, you have to see him as a genius of the world. I mean, truly one of the greatest minds in all of human history. And yet, even with this massive influence stretching over 1,000 years, well, we're still kind of grappling with the full depth of what he gave us.
Oh, world genius. That's quite the statement.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing considering he lived, a relatively short life, an intense one, too.
Oh, incredibly intense. Yeah, only 58 years. And packed with just immense pressure. He was constantly on the move, shuttled between different rulers, Shams al-Dawla, Ain al-Dawla. But here's the thing. They wanted him for his medical skills, his unmatched ability as a physician. That's what consumed his day's royal court's medical duties.
So when did the philosophy actually happen?
Exactly. That deep thinking, the writing that changed history, that had to be crammed into the night, often with very, very little sleep. You could definitely argue that this pace, this relentless demand, probably contributed to his early death. There's that famous story, right? Someone asked why he wasn't healing himself, and he supposedly said, "My soul no longer intends to manage me."
Wow, that really paints a picture. Exhaustion, maybe?
It speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the sheer pressure, the struggle.
Okay, so given those pressures, how on earth did he produce such groundbreaking philosophical work? It sounds almost impossible. Did he have help? Some kind of system?
He did. That's the fascinating part. He had what you might call not a secret weapon, but a crucial support system. His students. Despite everything, he gathered this core group. Exceptionally loyal, very gifted students, people like Ibn Sina and especially Bahmanyar.
Bahmanyar, he comes up a lot in relation to Ibn Sina, doesn't he?
He's absolute key. These students would meet with Ibn Sina through the night. And they weren't just taking notes, they were actively drawing out his deepest thoughts through intense philosophical dialogue. Bahmanyar himself was a significant philosopher, but he just revered Ibn Sina, saw him as a master hunter of truths, someone whose ideas were always, always fresh.
And Bahmanyar said something like, "His language was my secret." What does that actually mean?
Yeah, it's a powerful phrase. His language was my secret. It suggests this really deep connection, like Bahmanyar was uniquely tuned in, prepared not just to hear, but to understand and then articulate Ibn Sina's wisdom. You can maybe compare it to Rumi and Shams Tabrizi. You need that receptive partner, that student ready to receive for some of the most profound insights to even be expressed properly.
So without Bahmanyar, some of Ibn Sina's core ideas might have been lost.
It's entirely possible, or at least not captured with the same clarity. This really highlights something important. The truly novel stuff, the unique insights from Ibn Sina, what are sometimes called his fresh ideas, Tazeha Ibn Sina, in Persian, often bubbled up in these nightly conversations. It's a powerful reminder about dialogue, isn't it? How genuine thought often emerges right there in the back and forth, the questioning.
Okay, so if the really unique ideas, the fresh ones, came out in dialogue, what does that mean for his famous books, like The Healing or the Canon of Medicine? Are we missing something if we only read those?
That's a great question. Look, those books, The Healing, the Canon, they're foundational, absolutely essential. And the Book of Remarks and Admonitions, he apparently wrote parts of that in prison. Incredible. But generally speaking, they represent his more, let's say, systematic thought, his accessible arguments laying out knowledge clearly. The really original sparks, those tazaha, those are often reflected more directly in the records of his dialogues, which means we often find them preserved in Bahmanyar's works. It's like Bahmanyar captured the lightning in a bottle. My own book, The Discourse of Ibn Sina and the Expression of Bahmanyar, tries to explore exactly this one core idea, but expressed through Ibn Sina's maybe more spontaneous speech and Bahmanyar's careful articulation.
That's fascinating. A different way to access his thought. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. There's this common label, Ibn Sina, the chief of the Peripatetics, basically a follower of Aristotle. You're saying that's, well, wrong.
It's not just wrong, it's a profound mistake. A huge misunderstanding. Calling him just a peripatetic, just an Aristotelian, it misses the whole picture. Yes,
Yeah.
he studied Aristotle intensely, admired him greatly, actually more than Plato, but the key word is transcended. He went beyond Aristotle. He evolved.
Okay, but how?
Yeah.
How do you transcend someone like Aristotle? What gave him the tools or the perspective to do that?
Right. The key seems to lie in something else he knew deeply. Ancient Iranian philosophy, specifically what's called Khosrawani wisdom, or the Maktabi Mogan, the school of the Magi. This was a rich pre-Islamic Persian tradition. Different cosmology, emphasis on light, spiritual insight, things not central to Greek thought in the same way. Ibn Sina had access to these ideas, these materials. Some are lost now, sadly. And this allowed him to integrate Eastern wisdom with Greek philosophy, giving him a framework to, well, break out of a purely Aristotelian box.
And wasn't there a specific book that really showed this, the one that got lost?
Ah, yes, the great tragedy. His massive 20-volume work called al-Insaf, The Impartial Judgment. In it, apparently, he didn't just critique others. He really laid out his own unique approach, his illuminationist or Ishraqi leanings, this philosophy emphasizing inner light, intuition. But the entire work, his whole library actually, was destroyed, burned during an attack on Isfahan by Masoud Ghaznavi, a devastating loss.
Just completely gone.
Mostly. Centuries later, Sheikh al-Ishraq, who's considered the founder of the formal illuminationist school, said he basically picked up where Ibn Sina left off. It suggests maybe fragments or ideas from al-Insaf survived and inspired him. And some modern scholars, like Abd al-Rahman Badawi, think they've found traces, surviving pieces that reflect that unique Ishraqi thought, little glimpses of what could have been.
What a loss. So if he was moving beyond Aristotle, incorporating this mystical illuminationist side, how did people react back then? It sounds like he might have been caught in the middle.
That's exactly it. He suffered what's sometimes called a double injustice, mazlumiyat-e-mozaf. He was attacked from both sides.
Oh, so.
Well, on one hand, you had the strict Aristotelians, the most famous being Ibn Rushd of Averroes in the West. He criticized Ibn Sina for not being Aristotelian enough. He thought Ibn Sina misunderstood Aristotle. Ibn Rushd just couldn't get his head around Ibn Sina moving towards this illuminationist mystical stuff, Irfan. He basically dismissed it as fantasy.
Okay, so the philosophers didn't like that he wasn't purely philosophical in their view.
Yeah.
What about the other side?
Right. Then you had mystics and poets, people like Ghazali, Sanai, Attar. They generally distrusted philosophy anyway, and they attacked Ibn Sina for being too Aristotelian, too intellectual, maybe detached from religious law. But the irony is, they often hadn't engaged with his deeply mystical writings. Things like his Maqamat al-Rafin, Stages of the Gnostics, or his Treatise on Love, or his commentary on the Quran's Verse of Light. Deeply spiritual stuff.
So both sides are kind of missing the point.
In a way, yes. Both critiques were unjust. He wasn't a pure Aristotelian, he transcended that. That was his genius. But he was also profoundly spiritual and mystical. He brought them together, philosopher and mystic. Actually, one of the few major figures who seemed to get it was the great mystic Abu Sa'id Abul-Khair. He apparently recognized Ibn Sina's deep spiritual dimension, saw him as a true Gnostic. But that was rare.
This double injustice really highlights his unique position. Can you give us a really clear example of something that shows this transcendence, something purely Ibn Sina?
Absolutely. The perfect example is his proof for God's existence known as the Burhan al-Siddiqin, the proof of the truthful.
How is that different from, say, Aristotle's arguments?
Completely different starting point. Aristotle's famous argument, the unmoved mover, starts from observing motion in the world. You see things moving, one thing causes another to move, and you reason back to a first cause, an unmoved mover. It's based on observation. Ibn Sina's Burhan al-Siddiqin, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with the physical world. It starts with the concept of existence itself, wujud. He argues essentially that the very nature of existence necessitates a being whose existence is necessary in itself. The necessary existent. It's a purely rational, conceptual proof.
Wow. So not based on looking at the world, but on thinking about being itself.
Exactly. It echoes that Quranic verse, God himself bears witness that there is no God but he. It's God's necessity proven from the concept of existence. You won't find anything like that in Aristotle. It's a profound philosophical and spiritual leap, completely original.
That really drives home how he innovated. So This brings up a bigger question, maybe us learning about all this today. What makes someone a true philosopher if it's not just following a school of thought?
That's the core question, isn't it? A true philosopher needs what's called an aql naqwad, a critical intellect, a discerning mind. Real philosophy isn't about imitation, it's about transcendence, it's about going beyond. If you just repeat what others said, you're a commentator, maybe you're a follower. You're not really creating philosophy. Think about Ibn Rushd versus Ibn Sina, both brilliant. But Ibn Rushd largely stayed within the Aristotelian framework he meticulously studied. Ibn Sina used it as launchpad.
So for us, the learners, what's the takeaway?
It means philosophy isn't like, say, physics, where you have a current border of knowledge. Philosophy doesn't really have borders in the same way. Its whole essence is asking questions, seeking answers, pushing boundaries. The moment humanity stops asking questions, stops being curious, that's when philosophy dies. And maybe a crucial part of being human dies with it. The scholar Henri Corbin put it nicely. He said, Ibn Sina didn't reject Greek thought. He integrated that Khosrawani wisdom into it. He gave it new life, a spiritual depth. He kind of created a new Neoplatonism, but even went beyond that. And by systematizing mysticism, like in his Michael Mataladafin, he showed that reason, intellect, they're crucial guides. They stop spirituality from becoming just, vague, or misguided. Intellect and spirit working together.
That's an incredible synthesis. What a way to begin our journey into Ibn Sina. We've really covered some ground: his challenging life, the vital role of students like Bahmanyar, how he moved way beyond just being an Aristotelian. We touched on the tragedy of al-Insaf, that double injustice he faced, and got a glimpse of the power behind his unique proof of the truthful. And for you listening, perhaps the big takeaway is that philosophy is this ongoing critical quest. It's about asking the tough questions, synthesizing ideas, always looking for new angles, just like Ibn Sina did. So as we wrap up this first deep dive, here's something to think about. How could embracing that kind of philosophical dialogue, that back and forth questioning like Ibn Sina and Bahmanyar practice, change how you learn, how you question things day to day? How can we all cultivate a bit more of that aquanentquad, that critical, discerning mind in our own search for understanding? Join us next time on Wisdom Unveiled as we dig even deeper into the fundamental insights and those unique, fresh ideas of this truly amazing world genius. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, keep seeking. Thanks for joining us.